An hour later, a wager frantically entered Mr. Dethick's office. The location approximately to the whereabouts of the person or persons involved had been tracked down. "Sir, we have an approximate location," the wager said. "Good, let's go. We will search every inch and square of the area," Mr. Dethick said. And he had an army of wagers gathered outside his building into wagons. At least 150 wagers were with him. Another 200 would follow. Such a huge army just to search a few miles, but Mr. Dethick would not take a chance. House by house, they would search until they were found the culprit. And then Mr. Dethick would put an end to this once and for all, making an example of him. When Mr. Dethick and the wagers reached the approximate coordinates, he got out of the wagon and instructed the wagers to search each house thoroughly, looking for literature. "Rip apart everything if you have to. I want these rebels found yesterday." "Let's go, people," yelled Mr. Dethick. One by one, the wagers searched by house to house, ripping apart homes, waking up everyone. Mr. Dethick sat in his wagon waiting, hopefully news of who it was. Meanwhile, a knock on the Boulderson house woke everyone in the home. A friend of the family, Ingro, stood outside the door. When Present opened the door, he saw Ingro bent over. He squat in the squat position, trying to catch his breath, panting and panting. "Oh my gophers! What are you doing here, Ingro? Did you run all the way here?" Present asked in a concerned tone. "Honey, who's there?" Presence asked nervously. "Yes, I did," Ingro said, panting. "Mr. Pant. Dethick is searching everyone. Don't know what he's looking for. He's never done this before. He'll be here soon. What? Come in, Ingro," Presence said, motioning him to come in. "No, sir. I have to go home. I just wanted to let you know. I've got to get home and be with my family," Ingro said, turning to run again. "Wait! Ingro, what?" Presence asked, but it was no use. Ingro was not going to come back. "Who's there, honey?" Presence asked again. "It was Ingro. Said something about Mr. Dethick going house to house searching homes. Said he'd be here soon," Presence said, closing the front door with a confused look on his face. Precocious had heard because she was coming down the stairs that very moment. "Oh no," she thought to herself. "They'll be here soon. It couldn't be. How would they know?" "What are they searching for?" Presence said. She asked. "Don't know. Why?" "Don't know. Ingro didn't say," her father responded. Precocious didn't wait to hear any more of the conversation. She dashed up to her room and grabbed the papers. Not knowing what to do, she threw them in the blazing fireplace, hoping they burned before the wagers and Mr. Dethick got here. She opened her bedroom window and did not see the soldiers on her street yet. She went back to the fire and stoked the papers around it a bit. Then she ran back downstairs to her parents. They were now in the kitchen making coffee, waiting in anticipation for Mr. Dethick. Precocious crossing her fingers as she sat down at the kitchen table, hoping all the papers would burn, hoping that wasn't what they were looking for. "I don't know what they want," Present said as he sipped his coffee. Present looked stressed. Precocious took a moment to really look at her parents. And so now this is her trying to get rid of the evidence that she had taken the papers from the auditorium. She throws them in the fire. This is Precocious. She's like, "Oh no, Mr. Dethick is coming." Her father, with heavy bags under his eyes and red eyes. His mother, her mother, with black circles around her eyes and a sad look of distress. Precocious thought to herself, what if this is the last time she would see her parents? What if she was caught for bringing home the papers? What if these were the last moments with her parents? All she could do was look at them, knowing that with every second, Mr. Dethick was drawing near. Boom, boom, boom! Just at that moment, the loudest knock on the door Precocious had ever heard. No doubt it was the wagers. Chapter 11. Presence, and Precocious all went to the door together. Precocious and her mother watched as Present opened the door. We are required by Mr. Dethick to search every inch of the premises. Major laws were broken. Please step aside, the waitress said as they pushed past Present. 3 of them watched as the wager after wager entered their home and ripped it apart. Chair cushion and cut open dishes, photos thrown apart. They completely trashed the whole downstairs. A wager even stepped on Mitten, and he let out a large shriek. As the waitress began to go upstairs, Precocious' stomach tightened. She hoped all the papers were burned. She tried to listen intently as she watched the room the waitress were searching for. After a few moments, she thought she'd get away with it. Then, Mr. Dethick, you're gonna wanna see this. A waiter who had come downstairs was yelling outside to notify Mr. Dethick. Oh no, Precocious thought to herself. She now looked at her parents, who both totally looked with confused looks on their faces. They had no idea, but they would find out. Mr. Dethick walked in. He stopped to look at all 3 of them. This was found in the child's bedroom. He paused, now directly staring at Precocious. Do you know what it is? He held up a corner piece of the paper that did not completely burn in the fire. Precocious had 2 options, lie or tell the truth. She chose to tell the truth. It's a paper that didn't burn all the way, she said, looking Mr. Dethick straight in his cold eyes. And do you know what was written on these papers? Said Mr. Dethick, leaning into Precocious as he spoke. Yes, Precocious responded reluctantly, looking down at the floor. Then you know you are in big trouble. You are the one responsible for the Opaton. And your parents, Mr. Dethick said as he turned his attention to them. Opaton? Present said, confused as ever. No, they didn't know. I snuck the papers out of the auditorium and read them. They had no idea, Precocious said, falling at Mr. Dethick's feet. Please, punish me only, she screamed. What are you saying? Her mother said hysterically. Your daughter stole papers that were to be burned and brought them here and read them. She tried to get rid of them. And my wagers found this in her fireplace ash, Mr. Dethick said angrily. Sir, please, I had no idea. Take me. Let my daughter go, please, Present said, grabbing Precocious up off the floor. Mr. Dethick interrupting. She is the one who did it. She is the one who will pay. He paused. Jail indefinitely, he said without emotion. Wagers, take her away, he yelled. Immediately the wagers began grabbing her. Her father frantically wrestling with wagers and her mother screaming, the loudest shrieks a woman could possibly make. No, no, no! Her father punching a wager. Precocious thought to herself, what did I do? My poor parents. Please, Mr. Dethick, don't punish my father. Precocious tried to plead with him. Too late. You did not strike a wager. It's the rules. Take him too, Mr. Dethick yelled. What did I do? Oh no, Precocious thought to herself. This was all her fault. If she hadn't been so curious, if she had just been obedient, if she had not stolen those papers or even eavesdropped, she and her family would still be sound asleep. Now her and her family were going to prison, and her mom would be devastated. It's all my fault, Precocious thought.